As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Remember the Game, my retro gaming podcast, where every week a buddy of mine and I sit down and geek out about the games we played back in the day. My name is Adam Blank. Thank you guys so much for listening. This week, episode 59, we're talking about one of the games that I don't know a fucking thing about, but I did homework and brought on a guest just for you people, and that is Street Fighter 2, and its many variants. Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter 2 Championship, Street Fighter 2 Ultra, whatever the fuck. We'll get more into that in a minute. I'm not a big Street Fighter guy, but my guest this week is, and I think we did your game justice. So we're going to get into that. Before I get into all that shit, you guys know I need to ramble for a few minutes. And before I get into that, I've got a special guest here for the intro this week because he is hanging out at my house for the next couple of weeks. And that is a previous guest here on the show and video game nerd extraordinaire, my nephew, Ben. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. If Ben sounds a little off, one of us cut the cheese moments before I hit record on the recorder, and the other one of us is stuck sitting in here breathing in the very cheese that the original one of us cut. It was me very much. I stink. Anyway, so there you go. That's what you guys, if this is your first time listening to the show, we're a minute, 20 seconds in, and all you've heard is me farting and talking about farts. Okay, so couple of quick things, you guys. First and foremost, the Patreon episode, the first episode for this month is available now. It went up on Monday. It is about Octopath Traveler, the RPG for the Switch and on Windows, I think, as well. So if you haven't already checked that out and you're on the Patreon, Ben just hit his head on the microphone, I think.
Sorry.
That's okay. Swing over to patreon.com/remember the game or do your login thing and all your information will be there. Ben, you get the Patreon episodes. How do you
yes.
do you listen to them? Do you watch the YouTube feed or do you have them on like a podcast thing?
The secret episodes?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Patreon ones?
Yeah.
I listen to them on YouTube.
On YouTube. Okay. So, because that's an option. So if you guys, I think I haven't got a single complaint from somebody that gets the Patreon episode saying they can't listen. So I don't think they're hard to find, but there's a secret feed, like RSS feed you can plug into your podcast, system of choice, or every month when I post them in the Patreon thing, there's a YouTube link as well, and you could watch the episode on YouTube if you're like Ben and you're I was going to say old, but I guess that's like the really young, hip way to do it is watch your shit on YouTube. So it's there. Okay, so Octopath Traveler's there. Your second one is coming on August 26th, and that one will be the Q&A rambling episode for August. So if you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts, anything you want me to say, address, talk about, shoot them to me prior to August 26th. Probably get them in by August 22nd, 23rd before I record the show. You can send them to me on Patreon by the messaging, on Facebook at facebook.com/rememberthegame, or by Twitter and Instagram at memberthegame. Shoot them to me on private message there, and I'll address every single one. I don't have any right now, so please fucking send me some, because otherwise I'm just going to sit here and talk to myself for 45 minutes, and if that's what you want, that's what I'm going to do. So 2 more quick things before I get on to the rest of life as far as Patreon goes. Shout out to Big Titus. If you guys have not seen the video or listened to the Octopath episode, Big Titus, one of our Patreons, won the Sega Genesis Classic. So congratulations to Big Titus. And thank you all so much for donating and getting in. We'll be back to a regular prize draw next month. And I also want to give my shout outs to the Patreons as I do every month. So same thing I did last month. If I fuck up some of these names, I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. I am not an intelligent man. So quick thank yous to Alejandro, Bradley McHugh, Daniel, Brooks. I don't know if everyone wants me to say their last names, so I'm going to say most of them if I have them. Jeffrey Mathis, Luke Simpson, Mark McHugh, Nickel. I don't know how you want me to say that, but I know who you are. Thank you. Patrick J. Crossman, Sharonic, Ben and Shaley, Benjamin Barlow, Josh from the Press Start to Join podcast, friend of the show, check them out. Michael Mathis, Tyler, Andre, Todd. I'm not going to attempt to say your weird Australian last name, Todd, and fuck it up again. But it's Todd. Here, Ben, you try. You say his name.
Okay.
It's in the box on my computer there right now. Make sure you lean into the microphone. Give Todd his shout out.
Todd OTLer.
There you go. OTLer. That's how we're saying it now. I'm 100% sure that's not fucking right. But Todd, thank you. Big Titus, thank you very much. Taco Shirt Chris, friend of the show. Dave, Joe Buck, Freezer Burnt, and Mitch C. That is all our Patreons, I believe. If I missed someone, please yell at me. If you'd like to have a shout out on the show and be entered to win prizes and get listened to bonus episodes and give me a little bit of your money, then go to patreon.com/rememberthegame. $2 a month. That's all it's going to cost to get in there. And it's worth every penny, right? I'm talking to you. Who the fuck do you think I'm talking to? There's nobody else here. You're supposed to be part of the intro.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're goddamn right it's worth it. Jesus. You're a terrible co-host. You're just sitting there fucking staring at me. It's like you're starting to enjoy the smell of the farts that's in the room, and you're just sitting there taking it in. Okay, so we did our shout-outs. Thanks again, all of you, really. I do mean that very, very much. Thank you for supporting my show. Big Titus, congratulations on your Sega. Okay, now we'll get into rambling. I got a couple things, and at least one of these I want to get your opinion on, Ben.
Okay.
I mean, feel free to weigh in on anything you want. We got 5 or 6 more minutes here to fill before I go to the show. The Edmonton Expo, the Edmonton Comic Expo, Edmonton Entertainment Expo, whatever you want to call it, it's coming up next month here in Edmonton in September. And a friend of mine, Nick, who's a podcast is a podcasting nerd on his own, recommended I submit to try to do a panel at the expo, where you can go, and I believe how it works is I can go and record like a live podcast and maybe get people to come out and check out the recording, and you know, maybe I give away like a prize to people that come out to watch, and then I can get my info out there and get people in. And I'm torn on it because it's a great idea, and it'd be a great way to go promote the show. I could get some cheap cards made up with like info for the podcast and give them out, try to grow the audience. I'm just afraid that I'll book this panel and go to record the podcast and literally nobody will show up. And I'll just sit there in a room by myself or with me and my guest and record a podcast. And admittedly, I was talking about it with Ben here and my girlfriend last night. And my girlfriend's like, you have nothing to lose, and it'd be a great way to get some exposure. And then I said, yeah, the only thing I have to lose is my pride if I try to record a live podcast and nobody shows up for the recording. And then Ben, do you remember what you said?
I said, well, wouldn't it be funny if no one showed up and then you got a funny story out of it?
Yeah, and you're right. Like, it would be funny. It would be a great like addition to the beginning of the podcast, is I could point out that I'm the only podcast in history that scheduled a live recording and didn't have a single audience member show up for it. So I'm torn. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. The deadline is August 20th, which if you are listening to this tomorrow when it goes live is in 6 days. So if you, I always say by about the 15th or 16th, if you guys have heard this episode and you have ever been to one of these expos, ever recorded a podcast or one, ever gone to a panel, anything. If you're going to this year's Edmonton Expo, please message me and let me know if you think it's a good idea or not. Because the concept of it sounds really cool to me. It would really hurt my heart to try to do it out of a single person show up. That would suck. But you're right though, Ben. It would be a funny story in the end. Yeah. It'd be great. Also on that note, we're going to try to do a couple more conversation podcasts every, 5, 6, 7 episodes, I think. Try to, because I'm going to run out of games. It's fucking I'm looking at you right now, Ben. Like, it's a matter of time. I'm going to run out of games to talk about.
We're inching closer and closer.
Every week. I'm like, I honestly, every 10 episodes, I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do for the next 10 episodes? But then we come up with 10 more. So we are going to do a couple more. Like, we've done a couple in the past. If you guys go into our archive, we did, do you want a Nintendo 64 Classic and what do you want on it? We did one about Sega versus Nintendo from the console wars. They've been some of our most downloaded episodes. So obviously there's at least somewhat of a market in there for them. I have at least an idea for one more, and next week is probably going to be a conversational one as well. If there's a topic you guys would be interested in hearing about, let me know what it is, and maybe we'll look into doing that. What's your problem? Why are you making a weird face?
It just...
Was it an aftermath of the fart? Okay, well, we're not going to talk too much more about farts. A news story broke today, or yesterday, I think. That Nintendo has apparently submitted like a patent or something for Super Nintendo wireless Switch controllers. If you don't know, on the Nintendo Switch right now, on Nintendo, I mean, if you listen to this podcast, you know, because I literally rant about it every 7 days. Nintendo Online, you can play NES games online. And people forever now have been like, okay, like all the good NES games are covered. Let's get some Super Nintendo games. You literally, Ben, what did you say this morning? You want to play Super Mario World?
I want to play Super Mario World.
Yes.
Because it looks good.
It is fucking good. It's the greatest game of all time. And so I've been saying it for months, where the fuck are our Super Nintendo games? And it sounds like they're finally coming. And I'm telling you right now, it makes complete sense. I've already said it before. Nintendo Online memberships are up for renewal starting next month. So it makes it's the perfect time for Nintendo to roll out Super Nintendo games and get your money for another year. I really hope these come. I'll probably even order some Super Nintendo. I didn't order the Nintendo controllers. Yeah, I know you didn't either, Ben. Have you played? I'll ask you this because you're not old like me. Have you played? Like, do you play the NES games on your Switch at all?
No.
Now, is that just because, like, have you tried them and you're like, these suck, or are you just not interested?
Well,
I'm curious. How old are you?
I am 13.
You're 13, so you were born in 2006.
Maybe.
Which is like, what, 85, 95, 2000. That's 20 years after like some of these NES games came out. So I get that you don't have the nostalgia for them.
I played because you put out an episode about Super Mario 2.
Yep.
And I was like, whoa. So I just went and tried playing it, and I beat the first level. Also, it was so weird. It gave me very eerie vibes. It made me slightly uncomfortable.
It's a weird game.
I got to the second level and you had to fly on these birds, and I didn't know how to do it. So I just didn't.
What I like about that is I know there's old people listening to this that love the idea that like kids today just haven't played these old games. And it's funny because these kids today will like feed us our lunch at like Fortnite and like the popular games of today, but we're like, oh yeah, well you come play some Mario Brothers and I'll fucking hand you your ass. But you would play Super Nintendo.
I would.
Yeah, of course you would.
Those.
Because they're the better games. They're infinitely better.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're coming. I'm praying they're coming next month. Hopefully 3 weeks from now we have an announcement from Nintendo and they're dropping a dozen Super Nintendo games onto our Switch. Quit fucking around, Nintendo. Also, speaking of old games, the 1-Up arcade cabinets, some of the new line are available for pre-order. And I know here in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, they're EB Games exclusive. That's the only way you can pre-order them. And one of them is the Ninja Turtles one that I've talked about before. And I don't know if you've seen it, Ben, but it's like the old Ninja Turtle. Remember we used to play Turtles in Time all the time?
Yeah.
It's that game, but it's like the arcade version. And it's 4-player. It's like a giant arcade machine that you can all stand at with like the joystick and the buttons. And it looks so awesome.
Oh, are you going to get it?
No, I can't. It's $550 Canadian. And it's like, I can't fucking... I'll tell you guys what. I'll tell you guys right now. Okay, here we go. If we can get the Patreon up to $1,000 by the end of August, I will give one away. And I'll buy one.
Whoa.
Yeah, because there's no chance in hell. And listen, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, I should up my pledge to try to get it to $1,000. Don't try to get us to. No, you shouldn't. Shut your mouth. We're not gonna get to $1,000. I'm not gonna buy one. And what's really sucks is it doesn't sound like they're gonna be for sale anywhere. It's gonna be like a one-time thing. It's like your only shot at it, and they're really cool, Ben. But like it's $550 to play 2 video games. And I see the little Nintendo and the little Super Nintendo over there under my television. Both those games are fucking right there that I can just play anytime I want for $550 less than that cabinet is going to cost me.
Would that even fit in this room?
Yeah, I'd make it. Trust me, if I came across one, I'd fucking make it fit. But I don't have that kind of money to spend on an arcade game. I'm just curious if you're getting them. Let me know. I'm very curious to know if anyone else out there is buying them. I have some friends that are interested in them, and they're teased by them because they're up for pre-order right now at EB Games. $50, hold you one. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about before I get into what I'm playing and then the game this week, we were at EB Games 2 hours ago.
Yes.
That store sucks.
It was cold.
Okay. Okay, well that's not what I wanted to rant about. But yeah, it was cold. It was freezing in there. But that store looks like a flea market. It's just crap everywhere.
Where I come from.
You're from a small town in central BC.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
Our game store is Walmart. And they're
so you don't have any what's the word I'm looking, access to pre-played games or anything.
Yeah.
You have to buy them brand new.
All the games there are mainstream, or there's a couple weird ones that no one wants to play, like Big Fish Hunt.
Those fucking shitty fishing games that nobody wants to play, but they keep making. So obviously somebody's playing them if they keep making them, but I don't know who. Or that stupid carnival game that keeps showing up everywhere. That
carnival games
that nobody wants. Get the fuck out of here. But no, okay. So I understand that. If you're coming from a place where you don't have access to an EB Games, and you're not like me, I like to go digital. But you and I were talking about this morning. You still prefer. You like having the physical games, eh? Like the carts and the boxes and stuff.
They look nice.
They do look nice. I'll give you that. So we were in EB Games today, and despite the fact that it was cold, but the store is still crap. That's the point I'm trying to make. There's no you go in and did you see all the stuff that was in the middle? It was all crappy T-shirts, and there's a whole wall of pop figures that nobody fucking wants anymore. And there's a bunch of crappy video games and backpacks, and there was that Thanos glove, this giant. And I'm not making fun of you if you've bought one, but we were looking at it, and I was like, because Ben's got some money that he saved up for this trip to Edmonton, so he could go and do some shopping at the mall and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, you should $160. You should buy this giant glove. And he was like, get the fuck away from me. It's just so much garbage. That store, they're laying people off left and right. Their stock is worthless. Their business is plummeting. And I'm not wishing for them to go out of business because I don't want to see thousands of nerds lose their jobs. But it's coming. EB Games it'll be dead. In 5 years, it'll be dead.
You keep telling me how bad it is. And I walked in and walked to the right. And there were 7 different games there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it is bad."
Yeah.
And then
yeah. Because they have a whole wall of Xbox One and PS4 games, and then the Switch is tucked back in the corner.
The back corner next to the storage room.
Yeah, people kept walking by us while we're trying to look at the games to
can I get in there for a second?
Yeah, but there was the weird half-assed pre-played wall against the one side that had 6 copies of Let's Go Pikachu. And then and that was it. And then a bunch of old sports games. And Ben's like, this is all they have? And I was like, I know. Okay, fuck, we're at 16 minutes. We better shut up. EB Games sucks. Okay, quickly, what have I been playing this week? Fire Emblem. Just Fire Emblem Three Houses. I fucking adore it. I love it. Game of the year for me so far. The only thing I could see knocking it off the Game of the Year perch maybe is Pokemon. I adore it. I think it's phenomenal. It's a little easy. But that's okay. It's still incredible. And then Ben and I were sitting downstairs playing Tetris 99 a couple of nights, and it was awesome.
I won Tetris 99 last night.
Got your first W?
Yeah. Well, my first on my Switch.
Yeah, right. It feels good, eh?
I don't want to talk about it.
That's fine. But it's a good game. So Tetris 99 and Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is incredible. I love it. Buy it. If you like RPGs, you like tactical games, if you like to read, fucking buy it because it's great. Okay, good enough. What are you playing? You got 30 seconds. What games have you been playing? All right, that's it for Ben. What have you been playing?
Since I've been here, I've been taking your Switch and playing Ultimate Alliance on it.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating. That's the one problem with going digital is that Ultimate Alliance is locked on my Switch, so I can't play Fire Emblem while you're playing Ultimate Alliance, and it's starting to chat my ass.
I'm like halfway through though. I think I have 3 or 4 of the Infinity Stones, and I've been playing Minecraft recently.
Again,
getting back into it
because it's awesome.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And I just got Crash Bandicoot and Rayman Legends from EB Games.
Both excellent games. We should do an episode on Crash Bandicoot on here, and shout out to Mark McHugh for convincing me to play Rayman, and then shout out to me for convincing you to buy Rayman. So shout out to Mark McHugh for convincing Ben to buy Rayman because it's awesome.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay. Oh, yeah, and fuck you, Chris, because I know you're listening to this, and I know you hate Minecraft, and you're crazy. That's for me.
I think I said on the last podcast we did how much I hate Minecraft.
But now you're back.
I was in a bad place, guys. I'm sorry.
It's a drug. It hooks you. Okay, good enough. That's the longest intro in the history of this show. That's what happens when I have a co-host and I cut the cheese right before we start recording.
Am I the first co-host in the intro?
Yeah, I think you are. Yeah. So, well, Molly's always here, my dog. But you're a little better. You're a little better co-host than her. So, okay, good enough, guys. We're at almost 20 minutes. I'm gonna shut the fuck up. We're gonna get to this week's episode. For the first time, we are dipping into the arcades, and I guess we're talking like Super Nintendo and Sega and every other fucking system ever, because that's where Street Fighter 2 and its many, many spin-offs are. Full disclosure, I do not know this game very well at all. Fighting games are not my jam. I suck at them, but I did play this as a kid. I do know about its legacy. I know everyone wants to hear it, so I did my absolute best to do it credit. I brought David Rae on. He's a returning guest. This guy knows Street Fighter. I think we did a pretty good job. I hope you guys enjoy it. We had fun recording it. This game originally released in arcades in March of 1991, so it is 28 years young today, or not today, in March, I guess. That's good. All right, good enough. I'm going to cue the music, and we're going to get out of here and talk Street Fighter 2. Right, Ben?
Bye, gamers.
Bye, guys. Enjoy the show. Okay, here we go. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. It turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. Okay, a little bit of a disclaimer for this week's episode, ladies and gentlemen. If I didn't mention it in the intro, there is going to be more profanity than normal, I think, because today we are talking Street Fighter 2 and the many, many variants, I guess, in the way of Street Fighter 2. This has been requested by 3 or 4 of the listeners, and so when my pal David Rae reached out and said, "Do you want to talk Street Fighter 2?" I reluctantly said yes. I am fucking horrible at Street Fighter 2, but my guest, Mr. David Rae, is not as horrible as I am at Street Fighter 2. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well, yeah.
So you wanted to talk about this game.
Well, I kind of figured... like, you haven't done too many arcade games. I'm like, oh, that's also a part of, like, growing up and from a long time. And especially Street Fighter 2 is probably one of the quintessential arcade games of, like... Yeah, it was one of the... In that era of, like, last great arcade games. Where you would, like, pump in a bunch of quarters. Like, it's different now because everybody has, like, the shooters and the rail shooters. But there's nothing... it's not like you go to the arcades or anything like that anymore.
No, and like, dude, I mean, even myself, like, I grew up on an army base, and there was like a little canteen in there, and they had like 3 or 4 arcade machines in there. That was the only this is the only arcade I ever been to, was that 3 or 4 machines,
right?
And one of them was Street Fighter 2. Like, it was everywhere, at least during the 90s, anyways, or the early 90s.
Yeah, precisely. Like, if you ever went to like a random 7-Eleven, you're gonna find a Street Fighter game, most likely. Yeah, the only other ones that kind of competed with it are Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Especially like Street Fighter 2 came out first, and then Mortal Kombat 2 came out, and then it was like, oh, then you'd have the debate with your friends, which one's better. But I was like definitely a Street Fighter guy.
Because I owned Mortal Kombat 2. I sucked at it too. Dude. So just quickly, David and I just played a couple rounds of Street Fighter 2 on my Super Nintendo Classic, and he fucking worked me. And that was after I tried to play it over the last couple of days to just refresh it in my mind. And I can set it to the easiest setting and not get through 2 fights on the, like, I guess you'd call it like the
2
campaign
characters
mode.
or whatever.
Like, I'm so bad at it. And I sucked at Mortal Kombat 2 as well.
Yeah.
I guess I liked it a little better because I owned it. But honestly, just in like the hour I've played of Street Fighter 2 in the last couple of days, it's the better game. Like, it looks better, it handles better. It's almost looks like a cartoon, as opposed to Mortal Kombat, which is going for that more serious, mature, I guess, for lack of a better term, fighting style.
Yeah, that's how they try to like get over on Street Fighter. But yeah, Street Fighter had that benefit of, because we had talked about Punch-Out in the past, how like those characters look so great.
Yeah.
And especially for the NES. And I feel like Street Fighter was that next evolution.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it kind of playing it on the console does it a bit of a disservice because, that game is kind of I feel like simplified down even from the arcade version, because the arcade version looks better in the arcade.
That's with most arcade ports, though. Some of the Turtles games are arcade games that got ported to consoles and stuff like that.
They look better on the Turtles 2 is a great example.
Yeah. Like, and I love Turtles 2, but it looks better on it. They're just arcade There's something about the arcade cabinets. It's just,
they can dedicate a lot more power to, or like a RAM to the game kind of thing.
And I think that, like, and I don't know, I think most people that have played arcade versions of games would agree, there's just something different about playing it at the arcade machine, like about standing up or whatever and having the joystick and the big loose
joystick
buttons.
was going to be my big thing, especially with Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the moves that I was doing there, it's the controller. You need, for instance, Ryu's fireballs, down, forward, punch. The thing is that down forward is kind of like in that weird thing on a controller.
Totally.
D-pad.
Whereas on a joystick, it's a fluid motion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so it's a slightly trickier, or like it feels weird on the thumb, I would say, on the controller.
I get that. I always found that even when you play like you played Final Fantasy 6.
Not 6, no.
Okay.
No, yeah.
So in Final Fantasy 6, there's one of the characters, and oh god, if I oh man, there's nerds yelling at me right now. The muscle builder, the muscle builder. God damn it. Anyway, there's the brothers, and it's there's 2 brothers, and one is like a prince, and then one is like he ran off and became like a muscle builder. I can't believe I can't think of his fucking name. But anyway, his special like ability in the game is you can put in combos to do moves.
Oh sure,
and same thing. Some of the moves you have to use a diagonal as part of it, and I've always struggled with that on a D-pad. I know some people, maybe I have little thumbs. Like some people get it. I've never been able to do that properly.
Yeah, it just feels unnatural, and that's why some of those moves, like for instance, the dragon uppercut by Ken and Ryu it has like a weird, it's something like down, forward, up, like, and it's a weird combination, and that's specifically noticeable on the D-pad where it's like your thumb is going around it weirdly. And,
it's I mean, obviously it was a port just to straight up to cash in, right? You're Capcom, you're like, we have one of the most valuable video games on the planet right now. Let's get it on everything we can possibly get it on to sell it, right? I have no problem with that. But that's just I feel like that with most games. Anything that was originally designed for an arcade cabinet can make a successful transition to a home console. Yeah. But it just, there's something about it. It just loses something in the translation, right?
Although the out of the ports, the Super Nintendo was obviously better because they actually had the 6 buttons because
right with the LRs.
Yeah, the LRs, because like the L was the strong punch and the right was the strong kick.
Oh, I see.
Because that's how it works, right?
Right.
you had like the quick but weak punches and kicks.
Oh.
The medium.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I just literally, like, for anyone, like, I just mash buttons.
Were you doing like the, what is it, the Y and the B? Mm-hmm. Those were all the weak punches.
Well, there you go. That's why.
They're quick, but they don't do anything. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Okay, so that makes more sense then, because they've been announcing games for the upcoming Sega Genesis Mini that's coming out.
Yeah.
Like, they already released one, but it sucked at Games Made It. So now Sega's taking the reins, and they're going to release a new one in September. And Street Fighter 2, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the games that's been announced for it.
Oh, that's going to be weird. Because I was going to say that was the worst port, because the Genesis only had 3 buttons.
See, now, and my pal Chris is a big Genesis nerd, and he texted me right after it came out, and he was like, that's not going to be cool because the Genesis is shipping with the 3. Now, there are 6-button Genesis
but they were special, like they weren't the standard ones.
And and I already looked into that, and it looks like they are manufacturing 6-button controllers for it if you want them, but they are going to be sold separately. You're not gonna get one with your Sega Mini. Yeah. And like I could give a fuck because I'm never playing Street Fighter again after this podcast because I'm so fucking bad at it.
Just gonna throw it away.
Yeah. But for people that are like diehard into it, yeah, they were like, fuck, that's one of the games people most want to play on a classic console, and they're gonna have to buy new controllers to play it.
Yeah.
Whereas you're right, at least with the Nintendo, I never thought of that. I always thought 4 buttons, but yeah, I guess the shoulder buttons tack in 2 more punches.
Although it's not great either.
Sure.
To be fair, because that is such an unnatural, like you're trying to do like especially if you're doing like a strong punch special maneuver, and you got to like move your thumb and use your index of the same hand.
It's funny because like when I think of like, I mean, obviously by today's standards, like I'm pretending I'm holding a controller, but when you play like by today's standards, the triggers are some of the most critical buttons on the controller, right? Yeah. Like it's your shoot button or what have you, things like you could hold them and it's no problem. But like on the Super Nintendo, like for the most part, those were like they would move the camera or like little things like that. You know what I mean? They weren't always like considered like the A, B, X, Y buttons. Right. They were like we need an extra button to do something, so throw this one in there.
And you can see it in the design because like the new controllers have it so that it feels natural to hit the shoulder buttons. Mm-hmm. Like the Super Nintendo, it's such a thin controller. It feels weird in the hand to hit those shoulder buttons.
Yeah, on the current ones, like it's almost got that dome where it literally feels like a trigger on like a gun.
Yeah.
Like that your finger sits in, So
it's not so bad, but
Okay, so you know what? There's 2 main things I want to ask you about. So we'll start with you. Why did you said that you beat this? You were a Street Fighter kid. So what's going on there?
Well, one of the reasons I want to talk about it is the only game I ever beat in an arcade.
Okay,
because I think beating games in the arcade is kind of a rarity. Like how many?
Dude. Yeah.
Because usually. And mine wasn't some major accomplishment. I had to use 4 quarters to do it, but I used Blanca.
Okay.
And I just happened to find the right combination of. It was very cheap. I would just kind of jump in, do with a jump kick, and then get in so close, just like I was doing to you. And as you were standing up, I would hit that the mid-level kick, which is this like 2-hit knee attack, and it'd do so much damage relatively for such a quick attack.
Right.
So, and I would just do that again and again and again, and I was able to, along with a couple of other, hit him with the shock.
That fucking shock.
Mashing the punch button where you didn't need any skill.
Right.
And I happened to get through the original Street Fighter 2. That was not turbo or anything.
Yeah. So because the one we were just playing had 12 characters.
Yes.
And so it's so the one you were playing, the original arcade game, was 8 characters, and then the other 4 are like the bosses, right?
Yeah.
Before you'd fight at the end of the game.
Yeah. Okay. Balrog, Vega, Sagat, and Major Bison.
And Bison, he looks badass.
Yeah.
So obviously in future releases they made those guys playable.
Yes, it was like right in the second, whether I think it was Championship Edition, where they added those 4, and then after that came Turbo, where they added the speed variation.
It's funny because it's almost like pre DLC
yes.
DLC.
Yeah,
they were like, oh hey, for an extra like $60 for another cart or whatever it is, you can have these other 4 characters, or you can have Turbo, or like I guess because they were probably releasing new arcade machines with like those types of things in them, right?
The cabinets were always being released. Although for Super Nintendo and Genesis, they only released the one, which was Turbo, which was kind of like the farthest along
Right. It was
I think it was the third one to come out.
Be like buying the deluxe version of a game today.
Yeah.
Dude, even when I went to like look up the game, I was like, because I know nothing of Street Fighter other than my very minimal playing it as a kid. And I look it up and it was like Street Fighter 2 Hyper Turbo Edition. And I was like, what the fuck? Just throwing words on the back of it. But yeah, apparently.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, I was like, how's it Hyper Turbo? But I suck at it. But I get it. So that's, I've never beat an arcade game.
Yeah.
Fucking, and on 4 quarters, considering those games were designed.
And I was like
your
12
quarters.
or whatever it was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I mean, like, I remember, like, the arcade game I've played the most in my life is probably Turtles in Time. And I've never beaten it on an arcade because I ran out of money.
Yeah.
But, like, those games were designed to eat quarters.
Yeah.
Like, they were,
that's
like,
the point of them. Yeah.
Right. So to beat it on 4 quarters, so you'd have to win, 12 battles? 12 fights.
Well, it would be 24 rounds technically. You'd have to beat, because technically when you beat a person, you have to like win a best out of 3.
Right. So you have to beat each guy twice.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah, that's pretty good. So because I guess you could in theory, I guess you could beat it
in one.
If you had the patience and you just kept pumping in quarters, you could constantly continue, right?
Yes, that's
correct. But like to do it on 4 sounds pretty fucking good to me. Man.
Yeah. Well, especially for like, I feel like a kid.
Yeah.
No
shit.
Who didn't have a lot of quarters.
Right. Yeah. When I was 12, I don't know if I'd ever beaten a video game, much less an arcade machine like this.
Yeah.
So then, did you ever play it like against other people too? Because I remember that being huge. I just never got involved in it.
It was like a couple of times, and I got tuned. I remember it very distinctly because the guy was like, I don't know, 10 years older than me. And he knew all the moves for Guile. And he had this combo, which was impossible to beat because he knew how to do the moves exactly.
Right.
Where he'd send like whatever Guile's sonic boom, like the little projectile across the screen, forcing you to jump. And if you try to close, he'd either keep hitting you with those sonic booms, or you try to jump, and Guile has this flip kick, this flash kick,
right?
And it was unblockable, like you couldn't do anything.
He'd corner you.
Well, he wouldn't have to corner; he would just stay in the corner and just like force you to come to him. But if you were Blanca, especially Blanca was bad because Blanca had nothing to get around those things. You'd have to physically jump over it,
right?
But so he just beat me so easily because I had no way to. He would have to screw up his special maneuver, and he never screwed up his special maneuvers.
See, now here's part of my beef with fighting games, because I don't hate fighting games. My problem is just that I suck at fighting games. But one of my problems with fighting games is, and this to me is a debate to be had, when someone's doing something like that, are they good or are they cheap? Because I admittedly am very cheap. That's the only way I can win at a fighting game, is to be just cheap as fuck. Just find a move that kind of works and spam the shit out of it and hope whoever I'm fighting isn't good enough to figure out how to counterattack my cheap combo.
Well, and I think that really shows a person's skill, that because it is possible to overcome that, and especially in future editions of all these fighting games.
Totally.
There's
as they tweak and nerf and stuff. Yeah,
because even like Blanca, they tweaked his special maneuvers along with all of them to kind of give him more options.
Right.
However, especially now when they have the way combos work and it's blocks work and everything, it's far more technical than it was in these days. And those were all added to counter some of these cheap players.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you'd still have to cheap fighting cheap could work.
Right.
But if you had the patience to learn how to block and do all the stuff, then it's.
But when it's on an arcade machine and you need to pump in 25 cents to go to school over and over and over again, that's a hard
you're not
thing
gonna
to do.
Yeah, and to have that discipline, because you want to go so aggressively in those games.
Yeah.
But blocking is such a key element to that game.
Yeah, it's fun. It's, you know what? It's funny because it's the only type of video game, like the only genre of video game on the planet that I prefer to watch than playing. And it's not just Street Fighter 2. It's any, like, dude, you watch two people that are good at this, two people that are good at Smash.
Yeah.
Smash is fucking incredible. Killer Instinct. I remember playing Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo. I love watching people that are good. That it's almost like watching chess. You know what I mean? Like it's so. I love watching, like, the way, like you were saying when you were, teaching me / beating my ass at Street Fighter. You were like, half the time you throw a move out there just as a way to make them, they have to dodge this, and now you've set them up to land perfectly for where you want to do X. You know what I mean? Like,
and or at least that's the theory anyways.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I don't have the talent or patience to learn that, but I think it's awesome. Like I really do appreciate, and that's why like this is one of those games. As much as I suck at it, I appreciate it because I'm like, there's even just playing it for the last couple hours on my Super Nintendo. I'm like, there's obviously an incredibly deep skill set to this game if you're willing to put the time and effort into learning all the counters to all the different characters and what can you do. You know, you find your main obviously, and then you figure out how is my main best to counterattack anything anybody else is going to do, right?
Precisely, yeah.
And it's chess. It's like very fast chess. I think it's pretty cool, man.
I should mention about Street Fighter. I think you'd be remiss if you didn't talk about... Well, like, we've been talking about mechanics, but like there's also like the actual game itself. And there's... do you know Pete Holmes? Oh, yeah, of course you do. Yep. He did on his TV show... Street Fighter Red Tape.
Okay.
And you can find them all on YouTube now. They're from his old TV show where it's like a guy in HR talking with all of these fighters and they're pointing out like the characters' weird quirks all the way through. And it makes a good point because Street Fighter has like one of the wildest... It's like in that same realm as Punch-Out where it's like very... stereotypical.
Oh, absolutely.
The worst being, I think, Dalzim, the guy from India who does yoga.
Yeah.
Yoga. Yeah.
He's like all stretchy and stuff.
Stretchy.
That. Yeah.
Like, and of course, there's the weird thing of I don't know if you notice he has like a necklace of skulls around his neck.
Like notice.
Yeah.
But holy shit. Yeah. That's
Like yoga.
Yeah, like yoga.
Like Buddhist yoga masters.
It is totally. You're right. Yeah.
And they're small skulls, so they have to be children, right? Like those are child skulls.
No, they're bats. They're bats. Those are bat skulls.
And like none of the things make sense. Like how does teleporting, how does blowing fire, like none of it has to do with yoga or.
But that's what you do. Like you said, it is. It's like Punch-Out. What you do is you pick I don't know what the word. You pick a nationality, and you want to put a fighter from that nation in the game, and you're like, okay, if we just turn the stereotype meter up to 12, what comes out?
Like beyond.
And then they're like, oh, that comes out. Okay, well, that's our fighter now. Like but you know what?
I don't know if that's why it's like just like with Punch-Out. I'm like, I don't know how that game would be made today in today's climate. Like, the only reason you can keep making Street Fighter games is like. Well, they were the old fighters from before. Like, you could not make the new...
No, you could get away with copying the old ones over. And that's one of the things, like, and I don't want to make this into Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat because I don't know enough about either one to have the debate anyway.
Yeah.
But, like, I remember playing Mortal Kombat 2 as a kid, and it was, like Scorpion was there and Sub-Zero, and there was, like, Johnny Cage, I think his name was, who was, like, a movie actor who was also a fighter and shit like that, right?
Well, he's supposed to be... Quick little note about that. That was supposed to be Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They were trying to get him actually and to allow that likeness, but he wouldn't do it. So they just made Johnny Cage like
Shaq Fu style, but with a good fighter, like a good. Well, not Shaq is awesome, but like an actual fighter to put into a game. I didn't know that.
They wanted they wanted Jean-Claude because he would have made sense. Like he would have been huge.
That would have been rad. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, especially with the whole like motion capture that they did. That's why he even has like this does the split punch like Jean-Claude does.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah, I love the split punch. But you see, I prefer this. Like Mortal Kombat looked cool, and I like how they almost.
I don't think it was as mechanically as refined.
Not as close. Not even close. And I like the over-the-top, borderline, offensive characters. You know what I mean? Like Punch-Out. Like I love Punch-Out.
They're very dynamic. That's the one thing that they do have. Yeah.
And I will say, like, knowing nothing of Street Fighter, like I know the screen right away, those iconic yellow bars at the top, and you know what I mean? Like, and then I turn it on. The music's
amazing.
The music's sick. Like it really, to this day, like I'm just looking up quickly how old this game is because I want to see. March 1991 was when it originally released.
Yeah, that's like early era Super Nintendo.
Yeah. So that's 28 years ago, and I don't care what you say. Like the game still looks great today. Like that game, like just playing it right there. And I'm biased Super Nintendo guy who thinks most Super Nintendo games have held up, but I'm like this one. Most Super Nintendo games I think hold up because the sprites look cool and people like that sprite style. This looks like a cartoon. Like it looked awesome. It was so colorful. You know.
Well, and that's where Super Nintendo has that distinction of being like. It mastered 2D gaming, right? Like there's nowhere to go from it. Whereas the 64 had to kind of reset.
Yeah.
Like, it was 3D, but they're just learning it, right?
One, yeah. So I'd be curious then, if so do Die Hard, and maybe you don't know this, so are Die Hard super competitive Street Fighter 2 players, do they prefer, I would have to assume they prefer playing it on an arcade machine than one of the home versions like this, because of the joystick and the 6 buttons. I don't know, but I would assume that, like, if you were really competitive,
if you're talking about the Super Nintendo version, then yes, they would prefer the arcade cabinets. But because the controllers today have like the joystick,
right.
I don't think it matters as much.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess, like, because I think it's been released on like PS4 and stuff. Like, I think it's on the arcades and things. And as long as you've got the analog stick, it.
I don't know. Maybe they've released Street Fighter 2 on the newer systems. I just know, like, people have just evolved with it, and so now it's like Street Fighter 4 or 5.
Right.
Although, to be fair, this is starting to get out of my depth because I don't play the new ones.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I didn't want to throw you under the bus and be like, here comes Street Fighter 2 super guy, like nerd David Rae, just a dude that liked playing it growing up. That's all the game's supposed to be. So then my other big question, and this,
I actually read the comics.
Oh, really?
They had comics about it, about the story behind it.
Oh.
It's the stupidest story in the world.
Like, so what is this story supposed to be? Like, is it just like a tournament?
It's the dumbest thing you could possibly imagine. And they made a movie about it too, and it's kind of in that regard.
It's actually, like, it's a huge franchise, like Street Fighter, and I think this was the game that really, like, Street Fighter 2 is the one that really kickstarted that franchise, right? Like, I mean,
the Street Fighter 1 was not even a game. Like, nobody. It
2
was
is the one that blew up. And then there was
because they
books.
figured it out.
Right. So, okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So what's the story? So what is the basic story behind Street Fighter?
So Major Bison is like this ruler of this, I think it's Thailand, maybe, or like maybe he's not, but he's overtaken it somehow.
Okay.
And he's like this person who is the head of something called Shadow Law and all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Shadow Law has like these 4 people in it, and that's Balrog, Vega, and Sagat.
Oh, okay.
It's just it's a weird collection because, like, one's a bullfighter, one's a boxer, and one's just like a guy who's really good at kickboxing.
Yeah,
I don't know how these 4 are at the head of like a major crime syndicate.
Okay.
But a lot of the other characters are there trying to take down Major Bison.
Okay.
Like Chun-Li is supposedly like a cop of some sort.
Oh, okay.
That's trying to like go in and take him down. And Guile is special forces. Like in the movie, Guile, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme,
nice,
is the main character. Although usually Ryu is the...
That's who I think of as first. Ryu, yeah.
But
Ryu,
he was not the main character in the movie.
Okay.
But, that's essentially what it's about, taking down this guy, Major Bison. And Major Bison puts on this street fighting tournament. And it's and this is where I go back to the Street Fighter Red Tape, where those sketches break down how ridiculous of a tournament it is, like how expensive it is to go to. If you're fighting Ryu, you have to fly to Japan. And then I'm going to take on Blanca next. I'm going to fly all the way to South America to challenge, and then fly,
around the world.
Like, why would you? Why not have it in a central location?
Yeah, fly all all of them to one place,
and then they can all fight each other
or something. Yeah.
And I don't know how taking over the world has to do with this fighting tournament at all. But let's not focus on that.
Doesn't matter. You know what? Honestly, like, I'm a huge story guy when the game is driven by the story. Games like RPGs or like The Last of Us is one of my favorite games ever because of the story in it and stuff like that. But when it's stuff like fighting games, Mario Kart, fucking Mario games as a whole, Donkey, they don't need a big storyline. Just tell me
people like Bloodsport, and they're like, let's make a video game about
we
this.
have to beat up this person at the end of the day. So, all right, that's okay. Fair enough. That makes sense. So then why are all the heroes fighting each other? Or is it because the winner of the tournament gets to fight them?
I guess that's the idea. Is like they're in this tournament against each other.
All right. There are diehard Street Fighter fans being like, it doesn't fucking matter. They just have to fight. Shut up.
Well, the best ending was Zangief. When he wins, he's the Russian guy.
Okay.
Who, of course, his background is he's a bear wrestler.
Right.
But when he wins, he gets congratulated by Gorbachev. And they're doing like that Russian dance that What is that? Oh boy.
I don't
you know
know
which one I'm doing? Where they get low and they're kicking.
Yeah,
out.
where they cross their arms and they kick their legs. Yeah, yeah.
That's the ending to Zangief's win.
Oh, okay. So with each character, once you beat the game, you get to see
have
like
a unique
video.
ending.
Cool. Maybe I'll look up all the video endings just so I can, because I'll never fucking see them. So if I look it up, maybe I'll get to see them.
Yeah, I only got to
cool,
see
though.
Blanca's, which I can't even remember now. It's such a minor.
Yeah,
like
it's the same. It's like in Mario Kart. On Super Mario Kart, each player like celebrates the championship slightly differently, but it's like a little quick animation, and then you're like, oh, okay, well that's what I fought all the way through this game. To see was like a 5-second thing. But it was, what can you do back in the early '90s? What the fuck else were you gonna do?
Well, yeah, the story wasn't a huge thing. A lot of it was just like, completing the game.
Just
like,
wanted to play the game.
You can like hang your hat and say, I beat Street Fighter 2.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. Okay, so then my other big question for you is, and I would ask this to any Street Fighter fan. You just happen to be the one in front of me.
Yeah.
How the fuck? Keeping in mind that in like the early '90s, we didn't have the internet and Google to just look everything up. How the fuck do you guys figure what the combos are? Like, were they printed on the cabinet?
Sometimes, yes. I think they had a few of them on there on certain cabinets. There was sometimes it would be GamePro type stuff.
Okay.
There were ways to find out.
I get okay.
Because I feel like I saw them. Back in those days.
Because Mortal Kombat had that too. Everyone had a fatality and stuff like that.
Could
there were
have been even in the
combos to do them.
booklets.
Yeah,
It might have been in the book, like the game,
like the instruction
manual.
book. Because I do remember buying Game Pros and stuff to find like some of those things back then. I guess.
Yeah. I remember having access to them, but I remember as a kid looking. That's way too many buttons to do one move. Like, you know.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, I looked up some of the moves yesterday when I was playing, and I was
There's like 10
that.
buttons.
Yeah, I was like, I can barely throw a punch. Let's fucking worry about that before I worry about any of this other shit. Oh yeah, just quickly, because I have shit a lot on this game. I don't think I've shit on it that much. I'm just an idiot, and I don't know how to play them.
Because like the music, like as I said, like the graphics, the mechanics make sense.
Yeah.
The music's really great. Yeah. Like, admittedly, it is like a very niche game. Like it's a style of game that if you don't like, you don't like.
Yeah. When I fired it up yesterday, I hadn't played Street Fighter 2, and since I played that arcade cabinet a couple times as a kid. I forgot that up was how you would jump.
Yeah.
And so at first I was like, "What the fuck? Like, how do I jump?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah, it's up." Which I was like, why would the fuck would they make up jump? But now you explaining how you need the 6 buttons to do all the combos, I'm like, that does make sense, because I'm sure up on the joystick was how you jumped in the arcade too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, because they need all the buttons to make all the punches and stuff work, so that does make sense.
Yeah.
I really do. I'll tell you, like, I know I've crapped on it and I hate it, I suck at it and all that stuff. I have an incredible appreciation for fighting games as a whole. And this game,
you've kind of pointed at that as you personally.
It's totally just me. It's just me. Because
it would be frustrating to play that game. I know I get frustrated with playing the new ones. I'm like, I can never.
Totally, yeah.
I can't keep up with this anymore.
Like the fact that the game is like as old as it is, and people still absolutely adore it and adore the mechanics and like you said, the combo, like even the detection in it, everything about like I think Capcom does. I mean, Capcom fucks up a lot. Like, and I'm not going to sit here and defend Capcom, because as much as I love Mega Man, Resident Evil, they fuck up a ton.
Yeah.
But they deserve a ton of credit for this game, because they made a game that, I mean, obviously they released a few different iterations to try to tweak it, which they could do today with DLC or updates, no problem, but they couldn't do it back then.
I think they also had actual tournaments with Street Fighter.
Right.
Then.
Oh, yeah.
So, like,
I'd believe that.
That's where, like, those turbo editions come into play.
Right.
But,
like, to build a game that's this old, that is still this beloved, I guarantee you, like, nobody talks about Mortal Kombat this belovedly, and I like Mortal Kombat, but nobody swears by those old games like they do Street Fighter 2. You know what I mean?
Because that one was all about the novelty of the fatalities.
That's what it was. It was all about seeing the gory deaths, right?
Yeah.
Like, to me, the only, and again, not my wheelhouse, but the only other fighting game I can think of that's had a legacy like Street Fighter 2, and it's not nearly as long as Street Fighter 2's, is Smash Melee.
Yeah.
Smash Melee is one of those games that people swear by to this day, right? But so is Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll probably play it a little bit more and get mad at it and be like, "Fuck this!" But I get it though. That's cool, man. I'm glad that you did this one, because I really wanted to do this game because I know people like it, and I was like, I just don't get it. But now that I have someone that does, that feeds me my lunch in video games. I hope you guys all like. The most I know of it is the guys that made it into Smash, and I never used them in Smash either.
Yeah, that's a fun little side thing in Smash when they introduced Ryu and Ken is like, yeah, you can use like the special button in like the normal Smash controllers, but you can do the down forward punch fireball, and it's actually a little bit more powerful or whatever.
It's rad. Like this isn't a Smash podcast, and I don't know that much about Smash, but I like the way that they keep every fighter in the games, at least some characteristics from their original game, like in their current character, is really badass. You know,
well, that's why I love I love playing as Ryu, because it's like, I kind of like. Even without knowing Smash that well, it's like I can know how this guy moves.
Yeah, and that's that's badass, man. Yep. Oh yeah, and shout out to Capcom for putting the HADOOKIN. That's how you say it, right? HADOOKIN.
Yeah, kind of.
Someone's
HADOOKIN.
Someone's yelling at us, no matter how we say it. Shout out to them for putting that in Mega Man X. Because I think that's like the coolest thing ever. If you get everything, you can get that. And if you can get it off and hit it, it'll kill a Robot Master in one shot, which is badass.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's bad. I've never been able to do it because I suck at this game. But I just love the fact, Street Fighter 2, man. It's a fucking, it shows up. I guarantee you right now, dude, if I have my computer right in front of me, if I Googled the 100 greatest games of all time, Street Fighter 2 is in the top 30 games of all time. It has to be. I guarantee you it is. It's got a legacy like no other fighting game in the history of video games has.
Yeah, right.
With the possible exception of Smash. And Smash's legacy just doesn't go back as far as Street Fighter 2 does.
Yeah.
There were no arcades in the early 90s eating quarters for Smash Brothers. So.
Well, because, I mean, Smash is all based on the nostalgia of all these games put together kind of a thing. Like that's what helps it, as well as being really great mechanically.
Totally. But I mean, like, to me, Street Fighter 2 is it not the Super Mario Brothers of fighting games? Like, it's the one that really
I think it'd be fair to say,
right? It's the one that made them what they are.
Before
we wrap this up, you got any other thoughts? Can we score this thing and I can go back to rage quitting Street Fighter 2?
Well, the last thing I would want to end on, I once did a sketch one time where I would go up as Ken, and we were. The idea of it was for like kids or whatever. Like this event was for kids,
right?
So I was like, well, I'm this great karate master, and I'm going to show you all my great moves from the Street Fighter when I was in the Street Fighter thing.
Yeah.
But the idea of it was I haven't done it in 20 years because this game is so old. So like I'm going to show you, and like I try to do the Hadouken and I can't do it, and then I have to bring out the instruction manual, and I'm like down, forward, punch. Okay. And I tried it. I still can't do it. And then people are like laughing at me as I'm like, can't do any of my maneuvers. And I'm like, well, okay, well then fine. I'll show you how I'm going to do this. I try to do the spin kick, except I jump off the stage. I do the spin kick and I crash through a table that was like specifically set up to like buckle as I hit it. And then that's the end of the sketch.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like it. Fucking Street Fighter 2. David, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give Street Fighter 2? Keep it in mind that, anything less, I'm not saying give it a 10, but anything, because I'm not, but anything less than a 10 is going to get shit on by the fighting community that fucking loves Street Fighter 2.
I don't know how to, like, compared to now, I think... See, I never know how to rate these things because it's like, do I rate it as a game back then versus now? I think if it was a game back then it's definitely got to be like a 9. Yeah. And the reason for it, because there was some stuff, there was weaknesses in there, as I pointed out. But as a game now, I think it's only lost maybe a little bit of it, maybe like an 8 now, only because it's just like there are better things out there now.
But it's stood the test of time handedly.
Yeah, you can still play it now and it still feels
100%. Yeah. Like, I mean,
it's still playable now.
I'm no worse at it now than I was back then.
Yeah.
Like, it still feels great.
Yep.
You know what? Yeah, I'll give it an 8. And I think, you know what? Before you fucking freak out that it's only an 8, like, I was like, that's John Cena. Is that your phone?
Yeah,
that's a sweet ringtone. For anyone that can't hear it, his ringtone is the John Cena theme song. That's awesome. I give it an 8. Rude. And honestly, like, that's a 10 basically because of my disdain for fighting games. That's a fucking high praise. There's never going to be we may never talk fighting games on here again, and if we do, there's not going to be one that gets the praise that I just gave Street Fighter 2. Good stuff, buddy. Thank you so much for doing this. That was
no
great.
problem.
All right. And that's going to do it for this week's episode, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. David, thank you for coming over and talking Street Fighter 2 with me. Ben, thanks for joining me in the intro that we just recorded like 30 seconds ago. That was really cool of you. And to all of you guys that have been wanting Street Fighter 2, I hope doesn't matter. Sorry, I'm talking to Ben now. To all you guys that have been wanting Street Fighter 2 covered on the show, I hope I did it justice. I don't know the game well. I fucking tried. I'm going to try to dip into a few more games that I don't know that well, but I know people want to hear covered in the coming months. I'm doing my best. Honestly, I would replay all of them and get fully caught up in time for each episode if I could, but I just don't have time to play everything. So I hope we did it justice for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back again in 7 days with episode 60. 60 episodes of Remember the Game. That's a whole number. And throw us a follow if you're on Twitter and Instagram. Please consider supporting us over at Patreon, patreon.com/rememberthegame. $2 gets you extra episodes, shout-outs, and entries in win a prize. And if you're going to be at the Edmonton Expo or you've ever done a panel at an expo or gone to a panel, please reach out to me on Twitter, on Instagram, or on our Facebook page through your Patreon, whatever you want. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you would go. I've got like 5 days to submit an application, and I'm really, really considering it at the risk of embarrassing myself and recording a podcast in front of a room full of nobody. So thanks a lot, you guys, and I will check in with you again in a week. Take it easy, go play some video games, and go outside, or whatever. Okay, cheers, bye.